something like this to start, right?
Yeah, reports all I want, right? And a card or something, so I get the logo right. Sam, we ready to go? All right, let's call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
East Ward Alderman John Quinn.
Here.
East Ward Alderman J.C. Cunningham.
Here.
Mayor Natalie McNish.
Here.
West Ward Alderman Robert Boggs.
Here.
West Ward Alderman Stacy Lee.
Here. If you would please stand for a moment of silent prayer or reflection, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. In your packet, you have two sets of minutes, both from July 8th meeting. One is for the Board of Adjustment and the other is the Board of Alderman. Are there any corrections or changes, questions? If not, I will take a motion to approve both sets of minutes.
Make a motion to approve.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next item in your packet is expenditures. There is also a supplemental packet left on the table for you. Are there any questions or concerns with the expenditures? I will point out in the financial report section, the large pullout, and Monica, I'll just have you confirm this. The building inspections, water capacity fees, and sewer capacities fees, those are all correlated with the amount of new construction. Okay, so we haven't had as much new construction this year as we had this time last year, and that's the reason you're seeing a lag in revenue for those particular lines. Any other financial report questions? If not, I will take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next items in your packet are departmental reports. Those are for informational purposes. Do you have any questions or concerns? If not, we'll go on to committee, boards, and commission reports. Minutes were provided to you. There are some here in the packet. I'll give you kind of a short overview of what occurred. In the Parks Board meeting, we had Hidden Waters come and provide a presentation on some repairs that are needed done to the cabin. They asked for permission to apply for a grant that will help us fix the porch. That request was granted. We also, or I actually also met with the Park Board requesting the ability to hold a 9/11 memorial event this year at Patriot Park. And I also requested a small amount of budget to fund that event. They were gracious enough to do both, and I left with so many extra ideas from them enjoying the presentation and the thought, the theme behind everything, that we were able to reactivate that subcommittee and a few other community members and had a great kickoff meeting on Tuesday of this week. To kind of give you a brief overview of what this event is shaping up as, we are looking to do a field of flags to represent the 2,763 lives lost that day. We are also looking to partner with the school and allow that field of flags to provide some educational opportunities. We are looking to move our planned dog swim from the weekend before to the 9/11 and hold that for the hero dogs, the rescue dogs that were used for search and rescue. And then we plan to end that evening with a tribute and lights. So this would be much like what you're used to seeing in New York City with the Twin Towers and lights. We have a company out of Springfield that is able to provide similar light towers. So there's a few details that are still in the work, but we're working towards what I hope is a really great opportunity for our citizens to pay homage to that day. So that is where we're headed. If any of you would like to help with that event, please reach out. We would love to have you on the subcommittee to kind of help things move, or if you have ideas, please let them be know. We're in the infancy of this planning, so now's the time. If you want to know something, please get involved. JC, would you give an update on cemetery board?
Well, just 4 of us met on July 12th, and they went ahead and elected a chair and a vice chair. And about the only thing they really talked about was that niche, they say, niche structure that they want, and everybody's, I think everybody's on board. We had one voted no, but as I've talked to those other guys, they said, well, he'd been on board with it before. I don't know why. He said he'd go whatever.
Okay.
So anyway, but yeah, it was a good little meeting, but I think this would be really nice structure down there, put down there where, you can't bury them in the wet.
Right.
So, but they've got or not architect working on it here in town. So
Okay, so more on that hopefully
Yeah.
soon.
we got it. I think it's a pretty good deal.
Planning and Zoning Commission met. Rick, do you want to give a quick update there?
Yep, we just had a few items we worked on. 2 of those you guys will see tonight, the JNS Estates final plat and the parking ordinance. They also approved a preliminary plat for Edenview Estates, which is a new subdivision out off Golf Course Road. It's a 20, right now, it's a 25 lots, but it's going to be a lot bigger once everything's going through. So you guys, you should be seeing some bringing it into the city.
Oh, annexation.
There'll
Okay.
be some annexations through part of that. One should be coming here probably next month, maybe.
Yep.
We should see that when there. So good things are happening there. They're eager to get started, so we'll keep it moving as fast as we can.
Awesome. Thank you. Monica, the Finance Committee has met. Would you give a quick update?
Sure. The Finance Advisory Committee met on Monday. It was just an introductory meeting. We have a couple new members. So we went over the purpose of the committee, the ordinance that was newly enacted last year for the committee to review. And then we did set our next meeting for September 13th. That meeting will basically be in 2 parts. There'll be a review of government finance and budgeting. And then there'll be the regular meeting for the Finance Advisory Committee. That first part, though, you all will be invited to come to that and view the presentation on government finances and accounting and budgeting.
Awesome. Thank you. Tree City did not meet this month, if I remember correctly. They generally take a break through the summer. And Land Use Subcommittee, have we scheduled it yet?
So we're, Scott and Dwayne and I have been kicking some things around, and so we're hopeful that we'll have a meeting first part of August. So
Okay.
working on it.
And last but certainly not least is Grow Marshfield and Chamber of Commerce. Would you give us an update?
On the side of Grow didn't meet in July. We met at the latter part of June, and so the board decided they would just wait until August, more than the standpoint. So still pursuing 2 industrial prospects, or 1 development project, 1 industrial prospect. Just got another call on another one today. Just talked to Sam a little bit about it. We're going to follow up on it next week, so maybe we'll do that. One of the 3 is pretty promising, and hopefully met with them recently. There probably won't be an announcement for a few months, but I think a lot of stuff is going to become pretty set in stone fairly soon here, and so but we met with them recently. So good news on the industrial. There's some activity, just the type of projects that we're looking for. 40 to 50 jobs over 2 to 3 years. That kind of fits where we're at. We had the growth area from the sewer capacity study was presented to NDL yesterday. Went very well. So I want to thank the Board of Alderman and their support on that side of the growth areas. We've got some definitely big plans out there. So, but we've a lot of education, and I know you guys are going to go over a lot more of it at the next meeting. So. On the employment front, our unemployment ticked up a little bit last month. It's up to 4.1%. It was 3.5 the month before and 3.0 the month before that. I don't think it's anything to be concerned about. There's still a lot of jobs out there. If somebody wants a job, they can get it. A lot of the challenges, folks just don't have the skills right or the availability. And so hopefully we're gonna match some of those up. I've been hearing some stories from some of the HR people and stories I've never heard in my entire career of doing this. So in a way, it's good, except that we still need to find some people who can get some skills so they can, fill some of the slots that we've got here. Ribbon cuttings, I think Zimmerman's had their ribbon cutting after the last meeting, so that went over very well. Hidden Hut also had their ribbon cutting, so another couple new businesses out there that I hope we're all patronizing. The 4th of July parade, of course, went off, and an annual. It was a big success again from the chamber's standpoint. They're real happy, and Casey wanted me to express her thanks as well to the Board of Alderman on your support and involvement in that project. So that's gone over very well. Next Tuesday, the governor is visiting as part of his bicentennial tour. He's going to be visiting here in Marshfield. We'll be over by the Hubble telescope there on the square at 1 o'clock. And I'm sure I'll have a few comments. I think, Mayor, you're going to be there, aren't you?
Yes, I'm your opening speaker.
There you go. Okay. So if y'all could be there or anybody, from your business and friends, when the governor comes in town, I think it's probably appropriate for us to.
What time?
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock.
But you're coming to hurry up. I can do that too. Couple things on the financial side of the SimCog's revolving loan fund is now out. It's $1 million revolving loan fund small businesses can take advantage of. And so I'll be working with them and some of the local projects that we've got. And not only is that just came out, but the Economic Development Administration's NOFA, Notice of Funding Availability, is now out. And they've got about $500 million available for economic adjustment. And so, like I said, it just came out today. I haven't had a chance to do my review or research on it and how we might be able to do that. A lot of these funds, they have triggers, and triggers and EDA's parlance is basically a project. And we sort of have 3 projects on the table right now. Whether we can tie them to some of their funding, we'll just have to see. But I want you to know that that is out there, and GROW is taking a look at that. And then the last thing, following on the bicentennial for the state of Missouri, the official date is August the 10th. And what is happening across the state, kind of across most, as of last week, there's over 60 counties throughout Missouri that are having what they call ice cream socials in celebration of the bicentennial. And so the chambers and GROW are work together, and we're going to try and put out an ice cream social on the 10th of August. It'll be out by the pool, is where we're going to be doing it from 4 to 6. So people before work and then getting off work and that type of stuff. We'll hopefully have like Dippin' Dots out there for the kids, and then we'll have Andy's ice cream out there for the adults. So just a couple 2 hours just to kind of get along the same line what's going on across the state. Get a little bit. We'll put Webster County and Marshfield on the statewide website on that. So we don't have Webster County not lit up on that website. So and that's coming up, as I said, on August 10th from 4 to 6. So, any questions?
All righty. Board, with your approval, I would like to make a change in the agenda. Under new business, we have individuals with us tonight on number 2, 3, 4, and 5. I'd like to go ahead and move them up above unfinished business. That way they don't have to stay through the rest of the discussion. Are you all okay with that?
Yep.
Okay, so if let us move to number 2 under new business, which is approval of a temporary liquor license. Karen or Sam, can you tell us what's going on there?
I can. They're In fact, Kelby is on here. He's the one that made the request, and I'd be happy to unmute him. But in fact, I'll let him tell you a little bit about the event. But there's a request. They're having an event down at the fairgrounds, and so obviously our alcohol is not allowed in the fairgrounds, so they're asking for a waiver for that. So
Okay. And Kelby, thank you for joining us.
Yeah,
If you
no
could
problem.
explain a little bit.
Yeah, so like I said, my name's Kelly Lorenz. I'm the current vice president on the board of directors for Marshfield Community Theater. And I'm a part of our Young Professionals group, which is the group that's putting this fundraiser on. We're a new group. This is our first fundraiser. We're really excited about it. So to give you a little bit of backstory on the event itself, Summer Lovin' is kind of an outdoor concert type of idea where we're going to have local musicians and a local band playing love songs from the 1920s to now. And so we're billing it kind of as a date night, couples night out, parents night out type thing. And just wanted to, kind of end the summer, give those parents and those couples a fun way to end the summer type of thing. So as far as like the logistics in regard to this license, as far as like safety and monitoring things, we do have some people that we have identified that will be checking IDs. And for us, they're going to be checking IDs at the gate. And if they do not pass the ID check, they will be turned away. We're not going to worry about them getting into the space and then checking IDs. We'd rather just put a cap on it right at the gate, make sure that we're covered, and we're not, and no one's slipping through anything like that. We do have someone on our Young Professionals group who is a licensed bartender in Springfield, who is willing to be behind our bar. So we have someone that knows alcohol, knows how all that works, because I don't, and I don't, and that's why I want to put someone back there that's going to, make sure that they know what's going on, and she feels pretty comfortable doing that. Trying to think, what else do we have? As far as some of the safety things, we have IDs, we have that, we have a professional bartender. We're going to be monitoring people throughout the night. We will enforce some cutoffs if we think some people are getting a little unruly and a little wildly, we'll kind of keep an eye on that. As far as some of the other things, I know we've requested use of the restrooms. I don't know if we've heard back on that yet. I'd have to talk to our production manager. I know she reached out about that. We are going to have some kind of dumpster or trash receptacles on site to make sure that we're cleaning up and taking care of the space that we're given. So yeah, there's like some overview of kind of what the event is, the logistics, how we monitor and police things. So if there are any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Any questions on this from the board?
Is all their paperwork in order for the temporary liquor license?
They do not have their state license at this time, so we will be, if it is approved tonight, it will be contingent upon them obtaining their state license before they can receive their city license.
They've done this before, I think. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Station?
oh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Has this organization done this type of event before?
We've not done this event, but we have done a liquor license for similar events in the Centennial building. We've done some comedy nights, some stand-up comedy nights in that building before. So it's a similar premise. This is the first time we're doing an outdoor concert, but it's pretty much a similar idea.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? If not, I'd like a motion to approve this contingent upon them obtaining their state liquor license.
Motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Ellis.
Thank you, Kelby.
All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome to stay on if you'd like to. It might be a long night though. Okay, with that, let's move to number 3 in new business, which is a request for approval of a liquor license for a business named Two Gals Bar and Grill. Information is included in your packet, and I believe we have one of the owners here with us. Would you like to say anything?
I'm working with Brian P. from ATF. I spoke with him today, and he said everything's approved and good to go. He's just waiting for his boss to finish up, and then he'll send it for temporary until the drill one comes in the mail. He said that'll be next week. So we'll be able to provide you an actual copy showing that we're approved by like tomorrow, Monday.
Okay, so we'll be approving this in the same manner that we did the other one, that there will be a contingency and Karen will take care of that. Are there any questions on this business or for the owner?
When is it set to open?
Soft opening will be August 9th, grand opening August 28th. And I have spoken with the county about getting the county license as well, so all of that is in order. I've worked with Rick and the health department, so we've been in touch with everyone. Pretty much good to go.
Awesome.
And that does include Sunday on what I turned in, right?
Yes. Okay. So do I have a motion to approve this liquor license contingent upon receiving their state license?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. And you two are welcome to stay, however. I figured as much. All right, now we'd like to address number 4 and 5 together, which is a vacation of ingress and egress on a road easement. Sam, do you want to walk us through this?
Yeah, so there's a property down on Hubble Drive that in your package, you'll see that there's a small ingress and egress easement that I honestly don't know the intent behind that. It was done, I'm sure, before it was developed. The owner is here. We've discussed it, and really, I don't really know why that exists. So it's not a utility easement. It's not a public. It's described as a public ingress and egress, but it was on the first page of that. You'll see that it was moved over to the city. We don't need that, and nor do we want that. And so there's no really reason for us to hang on to that. And so he's requested for us to vacate that, and city staff supports that. So that's why you've got that in front of you tonight.
Any questions from the board? All right, if not, I'll move to the reading of the bill. Bill number 2021-26, an ordinance to vacate a 15-foot ingress and egress road easement being a part of Lot 1A of the amended plat of Lot 1 of the replat of Lot 3 of Indian Springs Phase 6 and the replat of Lot 1, the replat of Lots 1 and 2 of Indian Springs Phase 6 to the City of Marshfield, Webster County, Missouri.
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Quinn.
Aye.
Boggs.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Cunningham.
Second reading. Bill number 2021-26, an ordinance to vacate a 15-foot ingress and egress road easement being a part of Lot 1A of the amended plat of Lot 1 of the replat of Lot 3 of Indian Springs Phase 6 and the replat of Lot 1, the replats of Lot 1 and 2 of Indian Springs Phase 6 to the City of Marshfield, Webster County, Missouri.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Quinn.
Aye.
Boggs.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Cunningham.
Okay. Motion is passed.
Clark, we'll get you a copy of that. Everybody will sign everything after tonight, and then you can swing by and pick a copy up from Karen. That way you can.
There's also an issue on.
So we'll take care of that outside. And in fact, I think it's done.
Yep.
Yep. So you can take that one with you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Mayor, if we could, if you wouldn't care, if we could move number 1 of new business up as well. Mel's with us, but he's actually in Denver. And so
Oh,
if we could get him off of here, I'm sure he would enjoy getting back to his family.
absolutely. Is board okay with moving 1 under new business up? All right, so this is a grant application for a 604B grant. Mel, would you like to explain what this is? And I believe it's the little page that was the map that was left on the table for you.
So Mel, before you get started there, I'll let you walk them through this, but I provided in the back page the map of the areas. That way, if you you can talk about that a little bit, but I'll allow you to share your screen as well.
Okay. How good my internet connection is. So if it gets poor, let me know and I'll kill my video so that it's not so taxed. But can you guys see that now?
Yes.
Yep.
Sam, can you condense the? Thank you.
Does that still look good? Can you see just the
Yep.
slide?
Looks great.
Okay. Well, hey, so this is a grant through the Missouri Department. Oops. Let me skip out of that. Sorry about that. This is a grant through the Missouri Department of Natural Resources. It's called the 604B Water Quality Management Grant. It's a grant that we applied for last year at the same time, and there was an issue at SINCOG where it didn't actually get submitted. So we didn't not win it. It never actually got submitted. And so this is another chance to go after that grant again. Last time we went out after some I&I type of improvements and for the wastewater facilities, but I talked to Sam and he thought that maybe we'd have a better chance to get the grant, and it would be a good chance to maybe get some help with some stormwater issues around town. And really there's a lot of grants for water and wastewater, but there's really very rarely one for stormwater. So it's a good chance to try to get some money and help you guys out there. And so it's actually awarded through the Southwest Missouri Council of Government, and this grant can be anywhere from $25,000 to $50,000. And there isn't a match required. However, if you do provide a match, it increases your odds of getting it. They give 10% or 10 points out of 100 can go towards your eligibility of this if you do a match. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But if you get this grant, you've got 2 years to get it done, and then we submit the application to SIMCOG, then they submit it to DNR. It's a competitive application process, so there's no guarantee that we'll get it if we submit it. It's a quick turnaround, and so we actually have to turn the application in tomorrow if you want to do it. So we've got it ready in the event that you do want to do it, so that we can meet that deadline. And SIMCOG looks at it and they give us their opinion, and if there's any revisions that they suggest, then we've got a week between now and July 30th before it's actually submitted to DNR. And then they select the projects on or about September the 30th. There's several different things that you can use the grant for, but the ones that I think are most applicable to the items that we're going to talk about is item 4, assisting with stormwater and floodplain management through vulnerability assessment and resiliency, and assessing water quality in an at-risk watershed and developing remediation alternatives. And so, like I said, I worked with Sam and he came up with 5 areas that you guys have had a lot of problems with over the years with stormwater. And one is called the Sunshine area. And that's, I'm sure you guys are more familiar with these than I am, but that's that residential area. It's almost like a bowl. When it rains hard, water's just standing everywhere. And so it'd be looking for a way to get that water out and reduce the flooding in that area. And then Washington Street between Allen and White Oak. And that's an area where there's erosion along the side of the road, and there's that big ditch there, and it creates a kind of an unsafe thing for traffic, as well as, it's washing sediment into the stream downstream. And then the third area, we're calling it the Frisco Ball Field area. It's actually from Frisco Ball Field and up, and it's a similar issue there. There's some flooding and some erosion areas there. And then Marshall and Bedford is another area where there's a big ditch eroded alongside the road. And Locust and Julian is more of a nuisance area where you've got a lot of sediment that fills up a ditch, and the staff has to deal with cleaning that out. So those are the 5 projects. And so if we're successful in getting this, what we would actually do is we would do like a drone flight to get great aerial photography and topography so that we can figure out exactly how that area drains. And then we would use that to develop the hydrology. And the hydraulic is where we come up with the stormwater flows, how much water are we handling over what period of time. And then we would analyze the capacity of the existing storm sewers and ditches to find out how efficient they are, and then come up with a concept for how to fix that, a cost estimate for how to fix that, and then document that in a letter report. Any questions so far?
I see none.
Okay. So the decisions to consider is, first off, do you want to apply for the grant? And if so, we'll move forward and do that. And then the second thing is do you want to consider a match? And again, there's no match required. It just increases your odds of getting it. And if you do a match, you have a couple of options. You can do either an in-kind match where you will say, hey, we got personnel out helping Great River in the field to collect data, and you assess a value and document the value of that. And then the second is just a cash match. And so, for example, we did one of these for Kabul last year, and they got awarded the full $50,000, and they did both an in-kind and a financial match of 12%. Now, would it take that to get it? I don't know, but that was a successful one from last year. And so I'll be glad to answer any questions you have on any of this or those questions. But if we do want to move forward, then I would need answers to those tonight.
Obviously, we have to have board approval to apply for any grant. So that's why it's on here. So I'd asked Mel to go ahead and prep this, because I do think that it is a very good program. I think we have a much better chance of getting awarded for this. It fits the grant specifications a little bit more. And so we're looking for approval to apply, but I will tell you that don't really need board approval on the financial portion. If you decide to go ahead and move forward, I think that we'll hit our 10% of that for just by using $2,500 out of the street department funds, and then in kind of a minimum of $2,500. And so I think that those extra points will go a long ways towards the grant award. And the other thing to keep in mind too is that, you know, these low-lying areas, we have manholes in these areas, we have sewer lines in these areas. And so anytime we could do anything to at least get a plan together to get rid of that stormwater, that's that much less water just sitting there, seeping and going into those areas. And so I think it's a very good project. And Mel and I talked, and I talked with some other city managers about stormwater master plans. Those can cost you $100,000 to $500,000. That is not what this is. So in the future, if I come to you for a stormwater master plan, I don't want you to get the confusion that, well, that's what we did. This $50,000 would not cover that. But we obviously, there has been citizens in this room from each one of these areas asking for something to be done. And we really don't have a funding mechanism, but we also don't have a plan, or we haven't identified what the issues are. This is the kickstart to that. And so we will be able to identify that. We'll be able to get the drone footage that Mel's talking about. It'll actually take the topography for it. And so there'll be a lot of legwork done so that we can actually read that and we'll know where the water can go and what it can do.
I do believe the $2,500 that we're talking for a financial match, while it wasn't planned as part of the budget, it's not really unbudgeted money. It comes
Right.
out of the budget line we already have, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
we have, I mean, within our street maintenance department or our street maintenance fund or line item, I mean, that's part of what we do with that is stormwater control. And so we've been tied up on some major projects, and I see us being tied up for some time on major projects. And so I do not see it being an issue.
Okay,
on the
so
funding side.
this would be considered budgeted monies as
Yes.
well. And again, it's $2,500, $2,500 in kind, meaning labor hours that our staff is going to invest regardless of whether we call it an in-kind match or not, right?
So anytime they come down, anytime Monica has to do anything, anytime that Karen has to provide documentation, I mean, that's what the in-kind is. Richard and Brandon, they'll be meeting out there on the utilities. And so anytime they meet on something like that, Great Rivers will document that, we'll sign off on it. And that's how they'll do it based off of our pay and our wages. And they'll keep track of that and turn it in for the in-kind match.
Any questions from the board? Okay, if not, is it okay to go ahead with motion?
Yep.
Okay, if not, I am looking for a motion to apply for the grant and provide a $2,500 monetary match and a $2,500 in-kind match. So moved.
Excellent.
Take your pick. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Mel, I'll get you,
Thank you, guys.
I'll sign that and I'll send it over to Tim before I leave tonight. That way he can submit it tomorrow.
Yeah, I think he needs to make a couple changes. Are you gonna be around tomorrow? We can sign it tomorrow.
Yep.
Okay. I'll have him work on it. Thank you, guys.
All right, thanks. Enjoy your vacation.
Thank
All
you,
right,
Mel.
thanks. All right, see ya. Bye.
All right, and now that we have business with our guests taken care of, we're gonna go back up to unfinished business and we'll flow through the rest of our meeting as planned. First item under new unfinished business is the COVID update. Michael Taylor has provided a briefing, which is included in the packet. As we all know at this point, it doesn't include good news. Our positivity rate has been fluctuating between 13 and 15%, basically over the last 3 weeks. It doesn't look like it's going down anytime soon.
The only real good news is that July 4th didn't really send it skyrocketing. So,
Doug, I think you're needed. Yeah,
you know,
most certainly, most certainly. So I will let you review this. Do you have any questions or concerns that we can take care of at this time? Okay. Then we will go on to the capacity study. And Sam,
Yeah, just a brief update. So we're still working through a few things on the collection system in order to give you guys a full-blown presentation on that. But I did want to just bring some attention. Dwayne kind of mentioned it. We did go ahead and do the growth areas, which MDL graciously offered to help the city so that we could really get a global picture of everything. And so, I've been warning you that, sewer and capacity issues and this and that. Some areas are better than what we hoped, and some areas are worse than what we hoped. And so we will be basically be drinking from a fire hose at the next meeting a little bit to understand it. So this will be a multi-meeting agenda item. I'm not going to say they'll be back to back to back, but there is so much valuable information in that, from the lift station capacities to information that Dwayne and I need when we get requests from industrial people looking to expand their industrial into our industrial park, just to people wanting to be able to hook on a couple of apartments. But it also reflects, and it's all color coded, so you guys will be able to see it and have a real picture of where the issues are. And I won't go into that tonight, but just to kind of prep you a little bit, I did want to hit that, we have started the presentation at the MDL meeting, but ours is going to be more focused on the actual collection system and not the growth areas. We'll provide you guys all that information, but ours is a little more pertinent. And we've got it broken down into some options. Not going to be asking for any kind of approval. Not going to be, it'll be kind of development driven on what we do, but it will paint a very clear picture for you, the real challenges that I've been telling you have been coming.
The presentation, when this comes, I'm sure it's going to be drinking from a fire hose from all of us, even though that we have all worked, all of us have worked to try to gain the best understanding of the system as we can, knowing that it was an issue. But I really do feel like no matter how much groundwork we've done, this report's going to be drinking from the fire hose. So I anticipate that this becomes one of those standing agenda items, right? It may not appear on every single meeting, but it is something that we're going to continually talk about until we're comfortable with the information we've been provided.
It's pretty overwhelming, and even on the good side, right? It's overwhelming when you see how many houses can still fit in this area and how many can still go into this lift station. But it's very overwhelming for me, and I knew it was coming. And so just take it and digest it, and then absolutely anytime you have questions or anything like that, we can bring it back. I will tell you, kind of on the capacity study, I'd mentioned in an email that we were that I was thinking about waiting until I knew what that main trunk line. I think there's enough information in this that it's going to take a little time to digest that. But I will tell you that we did go ahead and purchase the pump. We got it in yesterday. You guys tested it out today. It was a used pump. Worked fantastic. And so Richard's very hopeful if we can get some of these other projects to come and draw to an end. But he's very hopeful that over the next couple of weeks we can start videoing that. So hopefully within the next month or so, we may not have the whole thing done, but hopefully we can have some information back to you. So pretty excited about that.
That's awesome. All right.
We got one deliverable out this EIS.
Yeah, we'll show you in that meeting. I mean, the previous board had approved, I'd approached them about getting all of our infrastructure on a GIS map. And so we have that platform. And so Great Rivers put all this into a matching platform to where it can merge with our other GIS information. And so we'll be able to put that on there. Now, we're not going to make that available to the public, obviously, but we'll be at the click of a button, we'll be able to click on any sewer line in town, which we have those already. But now we'll be able to click on them and tell the slope, the capacity, I mean, we've already got the size and this and that, but we'll be able to tell exactly what's going on. So that'll be a feature that you guys will see. And the presentation they'll show will be on Great Rivers ESRI software, but that will be an additional layer on our GIS software. So it's pretty cool stuff.
So this will help us in the future as we consider certain construction, certain platting of subdivisions, that we can have that real-time capacity information.
Oh, sure. So,
Okay.
you know, like every time we've spent money over the years trying to figure out, we've had apartment complexes and subdivisions, and come in and go, all right, hey, can we put this in here? And they'll come in here and they'll sit down, they'll visit with Rick and myself, and Richard will be like, from the stormwater standpoint, yes. From the water standpoint, yes. From the sewer, I don't know, right? And so then we have to work with our engineers to say, they have to go out and they take this very limited information and go, yeah, you know, without more information, should be okay, or no, absolutely not. What you'll see in this is now it'll map out it'll be a roadmap for you of what lift station flows into what, how many lifts, like there's a set of lift stations that this one flows into this one flows into this one 6 times before it gets to the plant. That's just the way it is with elevation. But you can't make improvements downstream because this lift station may have a ton of capacity in it. This one's way under. Well, this one pumps into this one. So you can't allow a lot of development on this one, even though there's capacity. They've done a very good job of laying all that out so that it's a clear picture of, sure, we want all this development out here, and look, that lift station's got capacity, but the one it pumps into does not. So now we've got to fix that problem. That lays all that out, and it gives us a tool not only for a 5-year budget, but probably more like a 30-year budget, you know. But again, it's too much to bite off. You would never bite off all of that at once, but it does give you something to go by for whenever development does start looking and set up and opportunities rise. We want to do this, but we've got to do this.
Awesome. Okay. Then we'll move on to city-owned properties. There is a map in your packet, pull-out map, and behind that you have several sheets. And Sam, do you want to kick us off on that one?
Yeah, so don't let me blow through any of this. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on just the city properties. It's probably something for you just to, again, probably just to let it sink in and see if we'll bring it back in another meeting, obviously, and see if you have any questions. I mean, we've got everything on here from our parks to our lift stations to, you know, the old recycling side, the towers. All of our properties are on here. What you will see, and you can kind of, as Natalie said, there's a list on the second page that shows all of those properties as just listed out and what departments they go in. The next page is what I want to draw your attention to. Let me back up just a little bit. And do you guys have any questions about just the overall buildings and properties that we own before I move on to that? And if you do, I'd spend a little time on that. But if not, I'll probably cover what some of your questions will be on the next page.
Yeah.
So the next page is a page that I put together for potential expendable or consolidation of city properties. This is something that I presented to the previous board years ago. Question was raised about some of these properties that we own and what is the purpose, what was the intent, why do we even own them? The ones that I want to draw attention to, obviously the 23 acres that we own out on North Elm Street. We've started that conversation. In fact, that's part of what the land use committee is going to be looking at. But just a reminder, we bought that from with wastewater money because we were presented with the fact that we had to get a pressure sewer line from the pool or from the new lift station 13 over to Briarwood. We had the opportunity to either buy a strip of land for a significant amount of money for a 20-foot strip, or the property owners at the time said, hey, you know what? probably going to be too expensive for us to build out here anyway. We've got another opportunity. If you want to buy this property, we'll sell it. We'll sell you the strip for X amount, or we'll sell it the whole thing for exactly what we paid for it. It was a no-brainer for the price that they paid for it, and so we just went ahead and bought it. The reason I bring that up is that if we do decide to sell that off or do something with it, it was purchased with wastewater treatment plant funds, and so those funds would need to repay the treatment plant. Highway DD and Elm Street property, that's right there on the corner. You guys will probably remember the old Baldwin house that used to sit there. We actually needed that property for, that's where lift station 5 sits. Again, that one was bought with wastewater treatment plant money. We needed to rebuild that site, and we needed some more property. We needed more right of way down around that lift station. So it just made sense at the time just to buy that entire lot instead of just buying a little piece down there in the corner. Again, if we decide to sell it, then we will need to repay the treatment plant.
On this particular one, it was tied in with our TEEP project this year, which has been completed and presented. Can you kind of remind us how all that?
Yeah,
fell out?
so best way to explain it probably. So in that study, we were talking about how to improve that intersection of those S corners. So if we were to just, for lack of better terms, try to go in there and kind of straighten those out, and obviously that's going to require right away from what the Methodist Church owns that they're on kind of the south side. So what that's going to do is that's going to basically, it's going to expand this. It's going to make this piece of property bigger, but it will probably also make better sight distance and visibility. So it'll probably make that property a little bit more attractive, or a little more attractive. And we would probably allow a few more things to go on there. Years ago, we looked at you can fit 5 or 6 houses on there pretty easy. But the problem is the road frontage, and how would you allow somebody to come in there, even if you gave a variance to allow them just to enter off of a service road onto Elm Street and not make them have road frontage on everything. It's still really close to that stop sign, which is already congested, and so you would just be creating an issue. So that wasn't going to work. We also looked at the fire department actually looked at it for a possible fire station. Very good location for it. However, MoDOT wouldn't allow the entrance onto DD, and I wouldn't allow it onto St. Charles, or onto Elm Street. So really, it would really be a big lot for one house right now, and even that would be a little bit of a challenge because of where they'd have to put the driveway so close to a clogged intersection. So if we were to move forward with that TEEP project, then I think that it would grow, right? We would buy more property on the south side, move that road down, which in essence would make that property grow, because then we would vacate some of that right. We wouldn't need all that land that we would move the road for right of way, so it would actually grow. Does that make sense? Does that tie that together?
Yeah.
Um,
So right now to sell this property would be probably not worth anything to anybody else because they can't do much with it, is what it sounds like.
but by code, they could put a house on it. By code, they would put a house on it. I do not think that would be in our best interest.
Right.
I do not with the other one being unknown, and not knowing how that's going to work.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
I don't foresee any long-term where it is in our best interest to hold on to that in perpetuity. But I do think that right now, we have some avenues that project that we're talking about. I think that it's realistic that we could straighten that road out. Now, it may be 10 years, but I do think it's realistic that we can get that project done. Some of our other road projects and some of that stuff that's on that map is, this is what would be phenomenal, right? If we could do this, but I'll tell you, I probably won't see them in my lifespan. But this is one of those things I think is tangible. I think that we can achieve that. Just takes
If
some
that
time.
lot grows, then we'd have more room for it.
If it grows, right. But the opposite side of that is just we sold it. If we sold it, obviously we paid, I don't remember where it's at, $80,000 for it. If we paid $80,000 for it and say that we sold it and we sold it for $100,000, I don't know. If somebody went in there and built something on there, it would be an incidental, and we may wind up paying more than that to move it, or we would have to buy the right of way back from them.
Mhm.
So it really makes no sense to do something with it until we know what we're gonna do with DD. North Marshall Street, it's a little bitty house. There was a little bitty property there. There was a little bitty house there that burnt, and this at the time it just kind of made sense to the administration and the board to just purchase that for possible stormwater solutions, possible retainage. The house was, you can see the acquisition price was $6,600. But we definitely have way more in it. When we bought it, it was partially burnt. And then the city had to do the asbestos abatement, and it was pretty expensive. And so our $7,000 investment turned into about a $30,000 investment. So we could do something with that. However, the density requirements are so small that it's really not going to be worth a lot. Kind of get into probably be looking at some variances even on that. And so we'd probably, if we sold that, I just don't know for sure what they'd put in there. You're probably talking about something very small.
Is this any type of location that could be handy for stormwater retention as we begin studying that?
I think that was probably part of the intention behind it, but I don't think it's located correctly. I think most of the water comes off of Crittenden Street and from up around the jail, and then it bypasses that, and then it enters past this property. Also an important thing to throw in there too. Prior to this board, which is not really for tonight, but prior to this board, there was a lot of talk about widening and improving Marshall Street all the way down, even through the park, even questioning the park's purpose. And so that was another thing, that played into this, because we were hot and heavy into those conversations at the time, especially when we didn't know where the pool was going to go. And so, a $5,000 or $6,000 property just made sense. Didn't feel like we could really get hurt on it. The former hardware property, you guys are all familiar with what that is. Basically, there's a big parking lot up there now, but that building was in terrible shape. In fact, we were in here in the middle of the night a few times. It had actually fell into the road. And so I don't really need to say anything more about that. It just made sense to buy that there is a plan for you that don't know. There is a plan out there that shows basically the four-way stop not being the four-way stop, and there to be a main hub, and that four-way stop to actually come up along, just come straight there by the MAC and come straight up beside the street department, police department, and then put a new do away with Crittenden Street and the Clay Street crossing and put one main crossing in there, and then make that basically the gateway into the south side of town straight up there. I don't know how feasible that is. There's a lot of things to work through, and it's really expensive. And then you get into some access to some properties. So not going to say that it couldn't ever happen, but I can say that it's probably not up there in the top 10 priorities.
Doesn't that particular project require one of the churches, that property as well?
It does, unless you swerve over just a little bit into this parking lot area, right?
Okay.
Which can be done, but like I said, there are challenges. The railroad at the time when we talked to them about it, we basically went to them and said, hey, we would be reducing your crossing and putting one in here. They were adamant to even consider it, that we would have to close another one. We can't really do that. They hate the one there at White Oak because it comes right off that curve on the railroad. You'd be cutting off emergency services. You'd be cutting off access to those property owners. Just don't see that being a viable option. So there are many challenges. Not to mention, if we did that, they would get financially involved. If the more crossings that we close, they would get involved. But the stop arms and everything that would be required on a main crossing like that, I mean, the stop arms and stop bars alone at that time were up over $800,000. That didn't even include the road project. That was just because of the crossing signal. So again, I just don't see that being up there above a third interchange or outer road or something that's going to produce revenue.
This particular piece of property and those two adjacent churches actually have quite a bit of historical value for the city of Marshfield, and they tie in directly with the path of the 1880 tornado. So there are other options for what we do with this, but that would likely be in some long-term planning project that we would undertake at some other time. So food for thought, but currently it's mainly used as parking, which isn't necessarily a bad thing either.
The recycling building, I think by now you guys are all familiar with that from the presentation we had. Really, we're still using that for storage. If you guys were just looking to offload a piece of property, I mean, this one wouldn't be that hard to offload. However, as I explained, over the years, we have just filled up our facilities, and given up space. And so there comes a point where, just like at home, you've got to have a place to put your stuff. And if not, you're throwing stuff away and then you're buying new stuff when you could have just stored it. And so I really don't feel like this is a property that we need to be really at this time looking at doing away with.
On top of that, I'd actually reached out to Dwayne when everybody presented this information to me when I came on the board, and said, hey, you know what's the marketability of these properties that I thought were low-hanging fruits? And all in all, 0.3 on a dead end in the middle of a absolutely nowhere with limited access. It's not marketable.
It's just so small. It's very small. The outside storage does just valuable on the inside. So not heated. It's just not worth much, but it does work out well for us to store some stuff. The next three kind of all tie together. The reason they were on here is because at the time we were talking about combining, and keep in mind this was before the original space needs. We bought the building, and so this was with the thought that okay, hey, can the police department and the city hall and everything, can they coexist in the same building? Is there enough space? What does that look like? And so the reason you'll see all three of those on here, obviously, if we were to do away with this bill, if we were to move into another building, then we could absolutely do away with this building. If we were to move the court, and if we were to keep this building and we were to move the court, and then you could move the police department, or you could move something else down here, which ties into something else I'll talk about, but you'd have to do something with the street department. So you could theoretically get rid of, if you were to build some new buildings, you could get rid of the police department and the street department. It's like the new city hall, the building on the square, right? Referred to as the new city hall. If we're not going to do anything with it, get rid of it. But in order to make any of that happen, some things that you guys need to be made aware of is that we've got it in the budget to start looking at building a combined building down the treatment plant for the water department and the treatment house and the treatment plant, the collection side, to be housed out of. Right now we're estimating that to be, I don't know, $300,000 to $400,000 for the building. But what that would do is it would get all those crews together in one place where all their equipment can be housed in one place, and they can start from there and go. What that also does is that would allow the street department to move out of that building and move up onto McVeigh Street, which one is the first step of being able to get rid of that building. But if we're not going to get rid of that building, it gives Doug room to grow. It gives room for Doug to grow into that, to move out of that, to move some of his parking out of that old building that's out in back. It's not heated and kind of a pain in the butt to get around and maintenance. It just doesn't look very good. But it also allows the office space and everything to be able to be backed up into that, and then to be able to park some of their stuff inside where they can work on some stuff and additional storage. And so that's why you see those on there. The other thing that you don't see on here is the future salt storage building. That's another one of those things that have been in the budget. We're very fortunate that MoDOT is allowing us to store our stuff there. That will come to a halt someday. We've been told that for 20 years, but it will come to a point when we can't do that anymore. We do have some other options that we would not have to spend a ton of money up front, but I will tell you that for years, we stored it over at the back of the cemetery and we covered it with tarps, and it was pretty well miserable. You go shovel because you couldn't take equipment to the tarps because you rip the tarps and then you're buying new tarps, and the liquid get on the salt and it's ruined. So you basically go over there, and every time you need to get salt, you shovel salt off of there, and then you load up and you go spread it. And you come back and you shovel snow, and it's terrible. So we're very, very thankful for MoDOT and what they're allowing us to do. But at some point that will come to
A few things I'll point out on these. On the existing City Hall property, you'll notice there's a city fiber hub in this, and you probably noticed that is in the budget as well. As these projects have taken shape, there was originally a thought that we were going to have to redo a lot of our fiber system. Then there was the idea of moving the hub, or anyway, that is where that particular line comes from. There has since been even more ideas on how we can work around that. So those numbers are no longer really valid. The idea that if we sold this building, this particular building, that we would have to move our dark fiber hub to some extent, whether it's take it out of here and put it across the street in that parking lot, or the fact that it has to come out of this building is real. That is a real thing. If we sell this building, it has to come out of this building. But as far as how we do that or what it costs, we still don't know. We needed a number to throw in the budget. So we worked with everybody we possibly could to come up with a number at that time. And I think the numbers changed 4 or 5 times since.
This is from Show Me. This number
Yeah.
was from Show Me, and this was at that time. It would be different now. But yes, that was to basically take everything out of here and relocate it into another facility or into another building. But yes, there are many other options, but it is all contingent on what the board decides to do with our other property. It can, like you said, it can be housed just outside this building. It can be housed out at Show Me. It could be housed in our new building or new facility, but there's no way to give you a cost until that decision is made.
Right.
So
There are so many variables. So please keep that in mind as you look at this particular number. It really has no value. And it's only applicable if we sell this particular building. The roof, I'm going to pretty well guarantee that 34,000 won't cut it. You think? Maybe?
That's only 8 months old, so I don't know.
Okay, okay. That one's newer than I thought then.
Yep.
But this building and
Yeah,
the
I'm sorry.
police department building.
I'm sorry, this one, yes, this was done. This was done
Yeah.
years ago. Yes, that is not the estimate for this year.
Okay, yeah. So that 34,000, again, this is an old document. We didn't really spend the time to update. So those particular numbers kind of, yes, it does need a new roof. And we have postponed any structural maintenance to any of these structures until we make a decision, right? Because we don't want to invest in something that the board may decide not to use. So all of these exist in your budget documents, but we have not done anything on those until a decision.
Those are pretty close. Those are pretty close to what we budgeted.
Are they?
Yep.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Okay. You'll note there's several maintenance issues noted in the police street building. And most of the maintenance issues at the downtown building have been taken care of. It's the renovation of that structure in order to make it usable. That is the big dollar figure in this. Are there any questions before we move off of city-owned properties? And I'll just go ahead and call that one by one so we don't get in a big tangle. Alderman Lee?
Yeah, I'm good.
Alderman Cunningham?
Good.
Alderman Boggs?
No.
Alderman Quinn?
No.
Okay. Thank you very much for going through all of that. And I know that's a lot to digest even on its own without knowing that we're going into the next topic. So
if you have additional questions on any of the properties, feel free to reach out to Sam. If it's something that you feel rises to the point that we need the whole board to discuss, let me know, we'll get it on the agenda. Okay? All right, next item on the agenda, I'm actually gonna flip. I'm gonna do space needs analysis and then city hall discussion because I think that makes more sense. Everybody okay with that? All right. So I hope you've had some time to play with the great big sheet of paper that we got at the last meeting. I have looked at it and changed my mind every time I looked at it, but I have kind of settled on a general direction of what it is, I think. So I'll go ahead and start with that and then we'll go down the line and two of the things that I really want to point out here is the storage space that is calculated into this. There's two flaws with this that I see. One, it's based upon the current storage that we are utilizing. Okay, that sounds like it would be accurate, only, and I've verified with Karen, there is a fair amount of stuff we are storing that needs to be destroyed. We just don't have time to do it. Once we have time, have manpower, have whatever it is that lets us go in there and take care of this, I think our usage of space will decrease a fair bit. I'm just going to leave it at that. I'd hate to say substantially, but I'm going to go a fair bit, right? The second thing is I can also guarantee you the amount of storage we're using for the year 2000 or 2010 is very different from our storage use in 2018, 19, 20, or 21. The reason is business has transformed into an electronic age. We no longer retain records in the same manner that we used to retain records, which means as we continue to destroy old records in compliance with our retention schedule and state law, as we do that, we will need less and less and less and less and less storage space. So while I do think that the amount here is accurate based on what we are currently using, I don't think as you look in the future that it's an accurate representation of what we need for storage in even 5 years. The other part of this that I kind of looked at was the Parks Department. The Parks Department is currently going through several individual processes to do the schematic design at Patriot Park and also planning and kind of wrapping their mind around the new activity center and what that's going to look like. That new activity center is expected to house all of parks management, right? So I kind of look at that, what they have in here as currently 272, ideal was 480. I kind of look at that as that's our future expansion area. Now, it's not a lot of future expansion area, but I think that was the same message that Joyce, right? Yes, Joyce had relayed to us, right? That she didn't put extra space in here per se. That was, this is where we're going to grow. This is the next 5 offices, right? Because all in all, in the next, I really hope 3, but probably closer to 5 years, the Parks Department moves. Okay. So once we boil the rest of this down, I believe she came up with, did you find the total square footage? Because I have this one.
9260.
9260. Okay, thank you. So 9260 was her total. I believe there's probably some middle ground between where we're at and that number. I also don't necessarily know if there isn't a way to phase this in. We're currently using this. We do need more. We know that. But how much more do we need right now? How much more could come later? Can we plan a structure that allows for that? Or would it be best to get it all now, right? Especially if we have the funding available for it. So I kind of wanted to put all that out there. There were several departments that I specifically looked at and maybe struggled with a little bit on whether or not I thought there was sufficient space. but I have to give credence to what she said about our furniture. And I know that sounds absolutely ridiculous, but I have watched them transform space at our university with newer furniture that was more ergonomical. And after offices were cleaned out or purged more or less, as we moved them from one spot to another, and they were given that opportunity to purge through their records, they did fit in the smaller space. And in fact, they enjoyed it. I don't think we're trying to give anybody any smaller spaces, but I do think there's something to be said about what she was talking about with we're making the best of what we have with what we currently have. And yeah, there is some other ways that we could organize the space differently. So that's kind of where I ended up with. I ended up with the fact that our current structure, which is 45,
4980.
49,
It's only
okay.
shy of 5, yeah.
it is somewhere in the area of 35 to 5 small. That's kind of what I ended up with. And of course, the other structure that is currently owned is nearly 15,
I think it was 8 per floor.
but we've removed
That's right.
we've removed a section of that as well.
Yep.
So let's go with 14, no, probably
I
13.
think it's 13 something. I think.
About 13 we have left. So that is obviously large enough for the total amount. However, there are other challenges to consider. It is 2-story, its location, the budget, et cetera, so forth. So that's kind of where I ended up on this. If you don't mind, I'm just going to kind of go down the line, and I'd really like to know what your thoughts are on what information we have and if there's additional information that you need. So Alderman Cunningham.
I have it right now.
Okay. Alderman Boggs.
I was in the same place as you as the records keeping in the Parks Department, and it's such a huge portion of the expansion that I think that I just thought it was a little over what we're actually going to need, and so I was on this same track as you.
Okay.
Basically.
Yeah, and it looks like storage space ideal was about 1,400, and I really think that's
Well, that's just
Probably.
just for the police station part, and then when you get into the municipal, I guess another 3. I mean, it's almost 17.
yeah, it's quite a bit.
Yeah.
I'd be really interested in how much space we could save with the furniture, the more compact design. I don't know what those really reflect in the numbers, but basically what Robbie just said, kind of what I was thinking as well.
Okay. Alderman Lee.
Well, I've been here beating this horse for longer than anybody. And where I'm at, I know what it'll cost to go to the square. I want to know what it'll cost to stay here.
Okay.
To me, there is no decision that can be made until, and I know we're not going to get to the penny amount, but
Right.
somewhere we need to be able to compare the two and decide where's the smart money spent long run.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I'm on the same page as Stacy on that. Like just the cost to move the hub and all that
Mhm.
offsets it too much. I'm pretty sure financially, I could never vote that at this point financially.
All right.
From the information I have.
Can we come to a concurrence on the amount of square footage we would like to try to add to this building to figure out what that cost is? So in order for us to reach out to an architect or whoever and say, hey, this is what we want to do, we need to tell them whether it's 5,000 or is it 2,000 that we want to try to add to the building. So where do you fall within the range of space addition?
I'm gonna say 3,500 to 4,000 feet additional.
And
I agree with that.
I think we need to figure out, how do we get rid of the junk like now? And figure out how much does that free up, take up.
Mhm.
I mean, that's a chunk of space. The space is expensive.
It is.
And if it's just sitting there with stuff that needs to be burnt, shredded, how do we get that done like next Tuesday?
Probably not next Tuesday, okay? So it does come down to staffing availability. We have added staff, but not enough to where it's going to take somebody who knows what the records are to be able to go in there and determine what can go. Likely it would require us, I would probably look into getting Secure Shred to come out with a truck, because we can just make a pile, they can throw it in the truck and poof, it's gone. I love the poof. So that would be definitely something we can look at. It's not gonna be a next Tuesday thing though.
Yeah, but, I mean, we need to start getting the ducks in a row to some extent to compare. Are we comparing? We can't decide until we've got an apple, kind of like an apple to look at.
Absolutely. Does everyone agree with the 3,500 to 4,000 square foot? Okay. Anything else that we want to specifically state within our request, and we'll let staff kind of handle that and then come back to us when they need approval.
Well, how much space would we gain from the furniture, you know?
Okay, so
That figures into the space needed.
that's generally interior design, so
And-
we'll
and
ask
the
to kind of,
cost
Right,
Is
and the cost there.
is it cheaper to buy furniture? Or is it cheaper to add space?
And I'm thinking Stacy's right too, like, I'm thinking 35 to 4 is a max in my mind.
Mhm.
Is like, if we are able to get rid of 50%,
Might not
we
need that.
obviously don't need that much. I'm just thinking that's like a ceiling.
okay,
And
okay.
So maybe luckily less.
So allow them to use our space needs analysis and their knowledge of buildings and our current building as well to figure out a flow, and our maximum is 35 to 4 additional square foot on the current structure. Okay. Would this include a refacing, meaning get rid of the mushroom looking soffit?
Flat roof.
I'm thinking the architect is going to want
Right.
to do something on the facade
Okay,
to make it show that it's new.
okay. And you said flat roof, so is the roof line something we might,
Something to look at.
Flat roofs just don't last as long.
No.
So they do a lot of it on commercial, but it's quite possible that maybe a regular roof system might be better.
And a lot of them look flat, but they're not flat.
Right.
You know, when you got
That's,
a
they've got
edge
some
around, they
pitch.
got a slope, but it's something to look, the architect can tell you something that.
Okay,
and they may design something different.
Right, might
like-
totally different, yeah.
Just like the new Harvest Bank. It's not the old style commercial like this.
right,
It's a nice looking, almost country style. in my mind.
okay. Units up there. Huh? Our air units are up there. Yeah, all of our handlers, HVAC goes all run through.
And they can still be stored up there. You can still make it work.
And I'd like to throw in a redesign of the drive-through.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay,
Door needs to be a little higher. For me and
I
Rob.
gotta crawl completely out of my
I
truck.
gotta get out of the truck to get it. I
I'm gonna
can't
do
reach it. You can't reach it from a little car. But yeah,
From my truck, it's,
Okay, Sam, is there any other information you need from the board to formulate a plan here, reach out and come back to us? Okay, so with that, I'd like to know the board's appetite to also reach out and look at a temporary solution to this, because even as we go through this process, it's gonna take a while, right? We have reached out to Webster Electric to see if we could utilize their community room for meetings, our meetings, committee meetings, et cetera, which would perhaps allow us to utilize this space as office space. Of course, that would take a little planning, and we'd need somebody to kind of mock that up as well. So would you be supportive if we go along that line too? That way we have an immediate plan and we'll get it done, but we're probably a
little ways out.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay. And we'll have to do, a look here, but we'll also have to go down to the community room and figure out what we need to make sure that we're still using that space to provide everything to the citizens and the technology that we may need in that area. So I'll ask that you not only reach out on the design of using this space, but also look at technology needed to make the community room usable for all meetings. Okay. Any other discussion or questions or something that you would like to discuss on the City Hall project?
Well, I got a question. Do you have a problem being down there, or would you? Or wherever?
Down there would be fine. And if we did get rid of our court system, that would open up.
Room for you.
Yeah, we could, that would open up growth room for our police department. And like Sam said, having to, being able to bring stuff inside and park stuff inside.
Right.
That's a good building.
So with the redesign of this to add office space, we would look at doing exactly that. So the court clerk would be one of those positions we would
Here.
look at coming here.
And leave.
And then I've got to meet up with Paul, our city attorney, and Roy, our sheriff, because I believe he has a room that Paul thinks would be great to use at that courthouse to hold court. So that would take all of their functions out of the police department and possibly allow Doug's area to expand. Granted, it'll be makeshift for a while, but once we can get to that project and get some plans done, we can make it another long-term goal to really make that
If
usable.
doesn't pan out, though, the community room would not serve as a courtroom.
Correct. So that would mean that even though the court clerk moved here, court would stay where it is. Okay. Any other questions, comments, concerns on this topic before we head down the road? All right, into new business, and we are on item 6. Item 6 is in your packet. It's a little ways down here. And it is mowing bids for blighted properties.
So we, basically, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory if you read through there, but this is for the properties that Rick gets, when he's out and about, and when they start, when properties get outside of code and they don't mow their own yard, this is what gives us the ability to call a contractor and have them come in and do it. We used to do it in-house, and I'll tell you, we can't do it. And so it does cost us some money up front, but we do recoup those costs. It may be up to 3 years, but we will recoup it because once we do it, we put a lien on the property, and so we will get that back when the taxes are paid on that property. So you will not see an expenditure and revenue neutral budget because we probably will not, we may not get the money the same year that we expend it. This is the prices are a little higher than I did put the comparison in there from the last time. I don't think you missed it. The last time we bid this out was in 2016, and so I fully expected them to be higher. I do think that they're within. I do think that they're appropriate. Keep in mind that by the time they're going to mow them, they're 10 to 12 to however many inches taller, and they're not going to come in here and mow them for nothing and tear their equipment and belts up and everything like that. So staff's recommendation is to approve. We did receive only one bidder, and it was from Master Sherman.
Okay, any questions, comments, or concerns? If not, I'll take a motion to approve.
Make motion to approve.
A second.
All in favor?
Right.
Thank you. And next item in your packet is the Mid-year financial statements. By state law, we are required to publish a semi-annual financial statement that provides a breakdown of revenues and expenditures. These are included in your packet, and with your approval, they will be published in the newspaper. So I am looking for a motion to approve the mid-year financials.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Next up is a replat for J&S Estates. Sam?
So I may turn this over to Rick, but the next stuff in your packet is dealing with, this replat. So, this is a couple of the properties that you guys approved the variances for already, as the Board of Adjustments during the Board of Adjustment meeting. So you'll notice on that rear lot line, that it doesn't meet the rear yard setback. Again, you guys had approved that variance for that. And so this has been through planning and zoning. Planning and zoning recommended approval of the replat.
Basically, it's a utility easement that we're not going to be utilizing at all. And it just frees them up a little bit of space to help with their property. So there was no issues in planning and zoning here. So just a simple get rid of the easement that back in that time it was required that all the rear yards had it. So we don't see no issues with getting rid of this.
Any questions or concerns? If not, I'll read the bill. Bill number 2021-25, an ordinance approving J&S Estates, a replat of lots 16, 17, 18, and 19, Block 1, Hood addition to the City of Marshfield, Webster County, Missouri.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Quinn,
Aye.
Boggs.
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Cunningham.
Aye.
Second reading, bill number 2021-25, an ordinance approving J&S Estates, a replat of lots 16, 17, 18, and 19, Block 1, Hood addition to the City of Marshfield, Webster County, Missouri.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Quinn,
Aye.
Boggs.
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Cunningham.
Thank you. Next item of business is off-street parking requirements. Do we have Scott?
We
don't
do.
have-
So I told him I'd text him when we got close, and with us moving things around, I kind of lagged behind just a little bit. So he's getting ready. He's jumping on right now. If you want to take a break,
Absolutely.
then Scott's jumping on and he'll be ready.
Everyone take 5 or however long it takes.
Especially like 100 foot, 200 foot, you know.
Hello, Scott.
Hey, Sam, can you hear me okay?
Can, loud and clear. How are you?
Okay, great. Doing good, doing good. Hope your meeting's going well.
It is. We're taking just a short 5-minute break here. I kind of, we moved some things around because we had some people in the audience for some other things. And so I kind of got a little bit behind, and we're ready for you when we pick back up, but we'll wait for Natalie to call the meeting back to order. So.
Okay. Can I do a quick check to be sure my share screen is working okay?
Go for it. It's all yours.
Okay.
You got it.
Okay, great.
You can just leave it up there. You can just leave it up
Okay,
there.
I'll just leave it up there. All right,
Yep.
sounds good. Okay.
Won't hurt a thing. We'll reconvene here in just a few minutes.
Okay, no problem.
Sam, how often do they do that mowing bidding? Is that yearly or every?
So
3 years?
the properties, the actual park or the city-owned properties, we do it every 3 years.
Okay.
And so, well, I say that.
Well, the
It's
blighted,
under a 3-year contract right now.
gotcha.
They submitted a 1 year, 2 year, and 3 year, and the board, there's a price break in there, so they got 3 years. So this one here, I would probably say that we will probably go into doing that every year or every other year.
Gotcha.
I think in that specification, I think Rick put in there that it was good for the rest of this year.
Okay.
So we'll most likely do it at the beginning of next year.
You do the blighted on the same yearly?
Well, so I missed the blighted when we did it. And so we did the first time. This is only the second time we've bid out the blighted properties. And so in theory, you probably would. Last time the same bidder got it. There's not a lot in it and they're not overly excited about doing them.
We do not have anybody.
Well, if we wouldn't have got a bid on it, what would we have done?
Okay,
Went back out for bid until we got a bid on it.
he's on your side? Okay. Yeah, I'll get with Sam.
Oh, yeah, I'm mad, yeah.
Okay,
But it needs to be done.
It has to be.
right?
I just worried about
Okay.
They don't know.
He the one that works with the DC Travelers?
some property.
It just hits you at the end.
And I want to mess right now.
Oh, yeah.
It's a little wet.
$1,000 for price.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my concern.
Yeah, I mean, I know most of what we're looking at is on the east side,
Other
but
properties.
I'd like to have west side representation. It's their town. How do they want it to grow?
But they'd be more likely
So when
to
they,
take care of it.
when they do a deed.
Exactly.
But
it doesn't-
And some of those
But it
guidelines
wouldn't
that they
take
set
so long.
now might, mhm.
Well, because you have to wait,
Yeah.
you have to wait until it's this long.
Yeah.
You have to give them 10 days. So by the time 10 days.
Yeah, I think I do. It's that weird, yeah,
All they had to do is read it.
with the real steep, okay.
Right.
Then you don't know.
So,
Yeah, then you don't know what's in there.
I'd be super happy.
so like if we bought property in March.
Okay, we will get that
We're on
to
off-street parking, right?
Sam.
Yeah, we just bought it.
Remind me after we adjourn. All right, is everybody back?
Everybody but Scott.
Everybody but Scott. Oh, well, never mind. I'll go back to signing.
Must have had an internet issue. He's gonna call in.
Okay.
While he's doing so though, I can pull that up.
You never quit working. You scribbling.
I do not. It's a B. And then squiggles under a C. It's not a 3. Do not put a 3 in my signature. Past saving on handwriting at this point. I even slow down when I sign your checks. I mean, come on.
Now can you hear me, Scott? Oh, not yet. Now can you hear me, Scott?
Okay, yep, I can hear you. Sorry about that.
Nope,
That's
you're
quite
fine.
all right. All right, we will call the meeting back to order. And Scott, what do you got for us today?
Okay. Mayor McNish, members of the Board of Alderman, I will walk you through something that the Planning and Zoning Commission has been working on since 2020. And it's revisions to the off-street parking ordinance. And Sam, if you can just start with that first slide, I assume you have it available.
I'm working on it. I was expecting you to share it, so I didn't
Okay.
I didn't
Sorry
have it.
about that.
No, you're fine.
While he works on it, I can walk you through the first slide. It's just basic information about the history of the parking ordinance. So much like, almost all of Marshfield's zoning code, the parking ordinance was adopted in 1967, and it's been largely unchanged in those 50 plus years. So following the Planning and Zoning Commission's review, the majority of off-street parking standards were actually retained. They stood the test of time really well. And we compared, the Planning and Zoning Commission and staff compared the Marshfield's current standards with two similarly sized Midwest cities, one just outside of Kansas City and one all the way up in Wisconsin. And they're similar in size to Marshfield, but we wanted to be sure that we were, looking at communities that were comparable to Marshfield in terms of the uses. So we're really happy with that outcome. A couple that we did add that you'll find in the code before you is commercial strip centers. That was something that, of course, was something that you would find back in the 60s and the 70s when this was adopted. But they become much more popular today, really the way that most automobile users access commercial uses in the 21st century. Conversely, we eliminated what is called tourist courts, something that was probably very popular along old Route 66 back in the day, but have largely disappeared from the zoning scene in the past 30 years or so. So we eliminated that. The code also, I want to note, includes some positive steps to reduce stormwater detention, the size of them potentially. And it allows for interlocking parking stalls, which will save space on parking surfaces and may make commercial shopping centers the size of those parking areas smaller. And it allows for also the permeable pavement surfaces, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. So we can go to the next slide. And at the top of this slide, it should say off-street parking ordinance for downtown parking.
Yes.
Okay, so just want to note that a longstanding tradition in Marshfield and in other communities is that because there's on-street parking and because it's important to try to save, make the community, make the downtowns more walkable, you have a very compact area. Traditionally, municipalities have not required businesses downtown to meet off-street parking requirements. So while you see them in neighborhood commercial areas or out along Spur Drive in the B3 zoned areas, not requiring parking for uses in the downtown area allows the downtown area to be walkable and compact. However, some downtown businesses, they may want to go ahead and provide off-street parking, some more intense use down there. So if they do, they need to go ahead and meet the B1 and B3 requirements that we're talking about this evening in regards to paved surfaces and the provision of landscaping. So I'll go to the next slide, and that one will have some pictures of it. There you go. As I said a few moments ago, one of the key provisions of the code and something that staff have wrestled with for a number of years is, what is a dust-free surface and how do we enforce that? So the new code update includes an enforceable standard for dust-free surfaces, and those are defined as follows: oil and chip, cement or concrete, asphalt, brick, permeable asphalt to allow rainwater to flow through, permeable pavers or other suitable surfaces. And some pictures of permeable surfaces are on the screen right now. Surfaces that do not meet the dust-free requirement are pretty much anything that's loose rock, such as crushed limestone, crushed concrete, pea gravel, river rock, and rock aggregate. The reason the city has tried to avoid this is that the rock gets out into the street, and when it gets driven over, especially that larger rock, it damages the street surface, and it means that more maintenance has to be done to those streets to prevent potholes. They also pose a traffic hazard if tires slip due to making quick stops. They slip on that rock, and it causes a potential traffic hazard for pedestrians and other automobiles. And then finally, during heavy rain periods, that rock that gets out in the street, if it gets into the gutter, a lot of it will eventually wash into the drainage outlets, and starts to clog them. And then those, during heavy storms, those pipes don't work as they should. So for those reasons, it's really important that we do our best to keep rock out of the street surface and also to pursue a dust-free surface. So on the next slide then, you can see on the right side that there's a standard, and this standard is shown in the new code. And the goal here is to require a concrete driveway approach before one enters onto private property where any existing gravel drives can continue to exist. So let me walk you through this part. The existing gravel drives or driveways, as of September 1st of this year, they can continue to exist as long as a new structure is not built on the property and the driveway is not, quote unquote, reconstructed or substantially improved. And of course, substantially improved allows for some discretion by the building code official in terms of what that means. However, when improved, the driveway must include a concrete driveway approach between the street pavement or the back of curb and the property line. And that property line, the width of that right of way is going to vary, but generally you can count from the back of curb to the property line in most residential areas is going to be between 5 and 10 feet. The code allows for other potential solutions to this, and they can be considered by the building official as well. So if someone comes up with an innovative solution similar to what's shown on the screen here, and they can demonstrate that rocks are not getting into the street, we'd be more than willing to think about what they have in mind or consider what they have in mind. Ultimately, though, the goal is to significantly limit loose gravel from encroaching into the street and damaging the street surface or causing a traffic hazard. So then we can go to the next slide. These are just some final key highlights of the code. The new code eliminates the prohibition of off-street parking in the front yard area. This has been a provision that's been, really hard to enforce. New uses like the Domino's or the coming Wendy's facility or the Burger King, they all want, to use being best use of their commercial area, and they frequently have parking spaces in the front yard. It's also been a concern in residential areas, and I think that's why this part of the code was adopted, is that we didn't want automobiles being parked in the front yard on grass surfaces. However, although we're eliminating this prohibition on parking in the front yard, I do think that the dust-free surface, that standard that we just talked about, is going to resolve the overwhelming majority of issues of automobiles parked on grass surfaces. So if the code enforcement official sees a car, parked on the grass, he can go back to that dust-free standard that we just talked about and say, no, you've got to have a paved surface, and you need to get your car off the grass. The new code also requires a 5-foot wide landscape strip. As you can see in the upper right-hand corner of the screen right now, the arrow points to a 5-foot wide landscape strip for future development or redevelopment of properties. And this is going to apply to mostly commercial properties, but some potentially industrial properties, that there's a requirement for these to be along commercial and our arterial streets. And it has to be out of the right of way. But they don't necessarily have to put landscaping in there. It just has to be a pervious area, probably grass. And we do think this is going to improve the appearance of commercial uses along these corridors. And it was something that was important for the P&Z as they considered the revised off-street zoning code. Off-street parking code. Finally, in the lower right-hand corner, you probably can't see it too well, but the new code includes minimum standards for parking spaces and drive aisles. believe it or not, Marshfield doesn't have a minimum size for parking. So the standard we frequently use is 10 feet wide by 20 feet deep. And it doesn't really talk about how wide drive aisles must be and how parking stalls can be interlocked in order to allow for more efficient parking on these surfaces. So this graphic in the lower right-hand corner is one that is commonly used in other municipalities in the Springfield, Missouri area. For example, Republic, Missouri uses it, and I believe Ozark uses it as well. So that is a very brief summary of the off-street parking ordinance, and I'd be happy to try to answer any questions. And of course, Sam, if I can't hear everything, please feel free to jump in as well.
Sam or Rick, is there anything you want to add to the presentation?
I think you covered it
Okay.
on my end.
We'll open this up for Board of Alderman. Alderman Boggs, any questions, concerns, comments?
My only concern on the, like parking in the grass is like, I know my wife's grandmother in Kansas City has had that issue, like she's 96. And so she wants to park as close to her front door as, she can't even really drive it just to see her car. And I'm sure that we wouldn't be writing citations to people in those same situations.
And a lot of what we're trying to get away from muddy ruts, that kind of scenario that we're seeing. So not a lot, but there has been in the past. It just driving through very good pace here in Marshfield. The ruts just keep going down.
Yeah.
That's kind of, either fill it in with some rock or do something with it. It's eyesore for muddy ruts to be in front of the house.
Yeah.
And a lot of the main, and a lot of,
We have a lot of cars. A lot of people got multi-cars.
Yeah, I know what you're, talking. I was just bringing that up just because of the,
Yeah.
you know, there's some elderly people, like she couldn't even drive, but just to see her car there, to know, or she thinks she could if she needed to.
Right.
sure.
So,
And we do have that, and the code does address that, just, you know, on a smaller note, but the big thing is on new construction, right? And trying to ensure that, you know, we have a consistent thing going, and that we, you know, because right now we don't have anything that somebody wants to come in and put a driveway in. We don't have anything to say that you have to, here's the standard.
Right.
And so somebody really wanted to block that, then they could do so.
Yeah.
And there's a few instances around town that they have. And okay. Because we say dust free and hard surface, but there was no definition. There was nothing, that blurb that said this is what's allowed, this is what's not allowed.
which I
I've never
think
had
is
that.
great to make it more understandable.
It's not argumentative, right?
Yeah.
Here's what's allowed, here's what's not. There's a provision in there that if they can prove it to our code official, then that's great, but can we take some good convincing, and then after that, it's gonna have to go to the Board of Adjustment for a variance, because chances are it's pretty well pointing towards asphalt.
Yeah, which makes Rick's job a whole lot easier than having to.
It's not vague, right? It's not,
Right.
well, your neighbors would really like you to do. Oh, did they tell you that?
Yeah.
No. But that, if everybody else in that neighborhood, if that's what it is, that's what it needs to be.
Alderman Quinn,
No, I'm good.
Alderman Lee,
I'm good.
Alderman Cunningham.
I'm good, but I agree with Rick, you know, I mean, it's a mess sometimes. And it just pulls it right out on the street. So I think something needs to be done.
All right. If no other questions or concerns, I'll read the bill. Bill number 2021-27, an ordinance amending chapter 410 of the Marshfield City Code, being an article pertaining to off-street parking requirements by amending section 410.110 parking requirements.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Quinn,
Aye.
Boggs.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Cunningham.
Second reading, bill number 2021-27, an ordinance amending chapter 410 of the Marshfield City Code, being an article pertaining to off-street parking requirements by amending section 410.110 parking requirements.
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Quinn.
Aye.
Boggs.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Cunningham.
Aye.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Scott.
Thank you so much. And see you next time.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right, next item on the agenda here is fee schedule presentation. And the point of including these today was for you to be able to look through these various fees. If you have any input or direction or something specific that you have knowledge of and want to direct additional review of any of those areas, we ask that you please reach out to Sam. Kind of let him know what your thoughts are on specific fees, and that way they can work that guidance into their plans. It is my understanding that staff plan to, if they're going to make adjustments, they will start bringing these to us over the next several months. That way, any new fees schedule that does need to be adopted can be done by the end of the year and take an effect January 1. Is there any questions now on these?
What is a surcharge for an unspayed female dog? Like if we pick up a female dog and she's not fixed, it's an extra $10?
I'm gonna look to Karen. I don't know.
Yeah,
I
it's in the
honestly
code,
don't know.
it's in the code book as a charge.
How do we determine that?
So keep in mind that some of the, so tonight's was meant to be something to give you all to look at and review. But some of this is exactly what we're looking at is some of that, right? I can tell you, we're not charging for that.
So if I
The code may say that this is what you charge, but I can tell you that we're not adhering to that. So is it enforceable? Who's going to enforce that? What are we going to do? And so it's not only the fees that we're looking at that we're going to bring back to you in recommendations is policy and how do we do that?
Okay,
And so
awesome.
I'll be honest, I don't know. We talked about that. Karen actually brought that up at I think at a conference or one of your things that you went to with the other clerks that actually came up, and it was kind of I said, I didn't even know that we did. She goes, well, it's in our code. And I said, I didn't know that. I didn't have a clue that was in there.
Well, we talked about, the girls were talking about, well, when we present this, do we present what our code says or do we present what we actually do? Because,
Right.
yeah, they're not charging up, up front. They're just, what we've always done.
And that was the
Because-
purpose of this exercise, of pulling all this out, because we don't need the contradiction between what it says we're going to do and what we actually do. We need to figure out if what we're doing is what we want to do, and then we need to change our code to align.
Because how do you charge for something you can't explain?
Right, exactly.
Or prove?
Unless you can get a talking dog.
A little higher pitched, right?
Yeah. And what different? Okay. So again, as you digest this information, if there is something specific that you think needs review, please reach out to Sam and he will work with other department heads as they go through these individual codes. Next item is award for bid for paving projects. I can't talk.
Yep. So I will, we went out to bid. I've got a bid tab that I'll pass out, but rather than give it to you right now and have you focus on the numbers while I'm trying to talk, I just want to talk to you through the process real quick. So we went out to bid. I think that I've explained that obviously our other projects that we've been doing are quite complex, meaning and their cost share. And so one of them was a 50-50, one of them was a percentage base, meaning the roundabout down at CC and Banning. And then the other one, obviously the I-44. We partnered with MoDOT on that. We know where we're at on our end, what we have spent, what we've done, what we have paid our engineers and consultants. There's a pretty big closeout process that MoDOT goes through in order to do all their checks and balances and to get their as-built approved before they finally sign off on everything. Really, one of the main things that we're holding off on, knowing from MoDOT, is their administration fees. And so they're still working through some of the project themselves, like I said, on their as-built plans. So they're unable to give us that. Unfortunately, there's a fairly large window of what that can range from. We have a good idea of where they're at. We just don't have any idea of where that will end. There's some stuff that they're still looking at. They've still got some geotech people out there for some of the settling. They've got to come back, which is not on us, but the contractor's got to come back and do some additional work. So there's just some little things that have not been tied up yet. With all that being said, we did go out for bid. I put in the bid specs for a base bid. The base bid consisted only of Elm Street, of the new Elm Street portion and the trail. That was the base bid. After that, I put on several, I think I put 6 alternates on top of that. Some of those that I did talk to the board at the time during the budget period, some that were not. There was just opportunities. And they were going to be in certain areas. They were going to have certain equipment here. And so it's very costly just to bring in for small pieces. So tonight, I'll hand this out to you, but tonight there is an apparent low bidder. And what I'm going to be asking you guys to do is to approve the low bidder. From there, what that does is that allows me to go ahead and go into negotiations with them. And I think that there's an opportunity through these other projects, and an opportunity through if we increase the quantity and accept some of these alternates, that I can probably negotiate that down a little bit. But tonight, what I need is for you guys to approve the low bidder. That does not contractually bind us to anything. That you're not spending any money tonight. You're not doing anything that has anything to do with any funding. What you're doing is saying that you agree and you're approving us to work with Blevins Asphalt. And so then, in order to keep this on a time frame, we put in the bid specs basically 90 days. So October 31st is when the project has to be completed. I wanted to make sure that it got it into this paving season. We didn't miss it, and it didn't get too cold. The asphalt didn't get too cold. It's a challenge. I've been waiting on MoDOT to do their thing, and I waited to the last minute, to the very last minute, to where I felt comfortable we could still do it. I'll tell you, the bidders. Not a huge fan of the time frame that they got to do it in. So once you guys select them, what I'm going to ask you to do is I'll get back in touch with you, but we'll be looking to schedule a special meeting next week. At that special meeting, I will come back with a recommendation and a contract for you guys to approve. I do not expect it to be everything on this list, but I do expect it to be some of the projects that we have promised. And I'll go into that more next week when we get together. We're still working through a few things that could change that. So I'll answer any questions you have. I'm not trying to be vague about it, but we're waiting on a few things to roll in, hopefully Monday or Tuesday, that could change my opinion. But I will tell you that it does look like, just off the cuff, I do think that it looks like the recommendation will be for Elm Street, Banning Street, to resurface all of Banning. Then after that, there's some contingencies in there that I'm waiting on, but I do think that we will probably be looking at paving Buffalo Street, that small section there that's so rough. And then that section of Elm Street, basically along Rockwoods, where it's so rough and where it has slipped so many times. Beyond that, the only thing that I'll leave you with, and we can talk about it even tonight or next week when we get together, is you'll see a deduction in there on the trail. You'll see that second number is in quotation or in parentheses is a negative number. So I asked them to give us a price. We bid it out with that trail being concrete. I asked them to give us a price for asphalt. So there's about $100,000 savings in there, $94,000 of savings in there if we go to asphalt. The problem is if you walk around anywhere in Marshfield, you'll see the sidewalks, and some of those sidewalks, yes, some of them are in bad shape, but some of them have been there for a very, very long time. If you go out here and you walk this trail, it's been here for 15 years, give or take, and it's got some issues. It's a maintenance thing. You've got to crack fill it, you've got to overlay it, you've got to seal it, you've got to go in and do maintenance to that thing all the time, which it's in need of right now. So don't be surprised, but I think that my recommendation will probably be to go to concrete, or to not do the deduction for asphalt, but stick with concrete. The trail coming down the new CC is concrete. If we are, we've got plans and desires to build a connecting trail or sidewalk to the school. If we want to do any of that in-house, then we're going to do concrete. We don't have the ability to do asphalt. So it just makes sense to put all that in the same thing. And I know that can be looked at and said, $94,000 if you went asphalt could be a cost savings. I do believe that it would be up front, but I do think that it would cost you much more than that in the long run. I can tell you that the last time that we sealed the trails, we spent $25,000 to seal those. So it's not cheap.
Sam and Monica, if you'll help me with this. The original basis for a lot of this project, or about $1.2 million of it, is actually remaining proceeds from our financing of the transportation projects, correct? And it was our bond council's advice that we spend this money on completing additional transportation projects soon. There is a deadline to it, but more or less soon is what they said. And so that was part of what fueled moving this forward. For that original financing, this Elm Street extension was in that original plan. So it only made sense that even though it was an alternate at the time we built the intersection, the new interchange, the board chose not to accept that alternate. That way they had flexibility to cover any significant overages that were just unseen. The result of good planning, some good contractors, and some really nice oil prices at the time. We've managed to have this $1.2 million in funding that's left over. So that is the majority of the funds that are being spent here. Now, in addition to that, we budgeted for transportation funds, which again, that is their purpose, is to do this exact work. We had budgeted for transportation funds to help as well. So those are the monies that, am I in line here? Those are the monies that would be spent on this project when we got to the point at looking at dollar figures in a contract.
So the bond council actually wanted this money spent back in April. And so we talked to him and asked him, explain to him where we were at with those projects and, with the significant savings that we had, ask him if we could extend that. Now, I'm not going to say that we couldn't extend it a little further, but obviously if we don't spend those monies on this type of project, then we need to put it towards the principal. And so, it's not like we're under a tight deadline to where if we don't spend this on this, we're going to lose it. But it is, we obviously identified Elm Street as a priority. And when else are we going to have that large of sum of money for that purpose and that intent? But it is funny how it lines up with, banning and the desire and the priority that we put on it to get it done and get it overlaid. And those two things alone add up to about the 1.2 that we have left. And so hitting back on the one thing that will probably fall off will be Marshall Street. Marshall Street's not in near as disrepair as what Banning was. It does have some places on it that we're actually going to tie on to and improve starting next week and take care of some of the soft places out there. We're also going to, just within our own maintenance funds, we're going to go ahead and widen that intersection at Marshall and CC, Marshall and Hubble. And so that will improve that as well. But, if we kick that out, most likely what will happen is we'll roll into next year, and we'll actually do it in the paving season and bid it, probably over the winter. Marshall will probably come out next year and be our base bid. And then we will have many alternates underneath of it. And so I just think that it's a good plan. And I think that, the dust will clear a little bit on these other projects over the winter. We'll have a much better understanding of where we're at. And honestly, if we come out with an early paving season of, May, June, July, we're really only putting this stuff off 6, 7, 8 months tops. And we've gotten everything that we've done, everything that we've really promised to do done in this year and definitely within the budget. So I think it's a good thing. Again, waiting on a few things, and then you guys approving Blevins tonight will allow me to go ahead and start into negotiations with them officially. And then I can put a contract together for that, and I'll bring that back to you guys next week.
Any questions or concerns from the board? If not, I'm looking for a motion to approve the low bidder, Blevins, for negotiations on paving.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, and the last item that we have, it's unfortunate that we have to put this in here, but this is a matter of safety for our employees. Unfortunately, we get irritated and aggravated at the individuals who run through the middle of the roundabouts and rip donuts in them and tear up all that property. And as aggravating as that is, I don't think it compares to the level of upset I have been this week at a few of the individuals who have traversed Banning and decided that because there was no curb, they would go around our work areas and nearly hitting one of our employees who was still working with some of the concrete. It's just really unfortunate that we all know we need to repair this infrastructure and we've all made it a priority. And the majority of the comments I get from citizens are positive, right? Thank you for taking care of this. Wow, this looks great. Tell the guys they did a good job. You know, I hear a lot of that, but with even a few who are willing to disrespect our workers and ignore their safety, I think it's come to the level that we need to take action that we can to protect our employees. So Sam reached out to Paul and to Karen, and Karen was able to find an example ordinance from another city. Paul and her and Sam kind of crafted this and consulted with Doug to make sure that we had something that not only was sound in law, but actionable if there happens to be another type of offense similar to what we've experienced in the last week. We have no intentions of stopping our efforts to improve our infrastructure. This is not going to be the end of orange barrels in the city. It is the beginning of orange barrels in the city. We have a lot of work to do in a lot of areas that are harder to travel than the widest section of Banning that happens to have no curb. So with that, you are provided with an ordinance today that allows enforcement in work areas on an offense of endangering city work crew. It does provide caveats for mechanical failures. And it does specifically say that, you know, if there is no work crew present, then normal or other code would apply to that area for offenses such as speeding, C&I, or whatever else. However, these particular fines or penalties are increased due to the endangerment of our employees who are only out there doing what we have requested that they do and what the city has been asking for as many years as I have lived here. So with that, I will open it up for comments or questions. And then if you agree, we will read a bill. Any comments, questions, or concerns from the board?
Do you think it'd be more effective if it was whether there's people there or not? I mean, because people don't see who they hit until, you know what I mean? It's not like they see them way out there. They're coming out from behind a vehicle or something like that. So if it was whether they're there or not, then I know that I better, you know, if I'm worried about this law, I'm going to be going slow whether I see anybody or not.
I agree, but shouldn't you not go around the barrels in the first place?
Well, exactly.
And I think that's the point. But what was the caveat on the, you know, is there an enforceability?
I mean, it does state in there that that just goes back to if there's not a worker present, it would just be regular traffic law. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I get what you're saying, and I think that I think, you know, I think this is consistent with what you see, because I mean, you'll see that even on state highways that if workers are present, I mean, there's additional fines, obviously, if you hit them. But you do see that quite often as if workers are present. And so I think that covers it. I mean, obviously you're not ever you can't fix stupidity, right? So even today, and I say that boldly and proudly, even today, they blew through barriers today and drove through wet concrete. Our guys did the best they could to fix it, right? So not saying that you won't notice it, obviously, and hope and thankfully it will be covered up before too long. But the reality exists. I mean, they could have just as easy been overworking on that. But I think what we have here, we should have had it a long time ago. But our guys really don't get too worked up over this type of thing. But I'll tell you that when they call and they've called Doug and I several times and had some issues, of course, very busy road. But when they call and say, is there not something that we can put in place? This is an issue, right? And they don't even understand all the legality and everything works. When they call and they say, this is getting to be bad. The day that they called and asked that's the day that I contacted Karen and Paul and said, can we find something?
And I do agree with, I understand road construction is annoying. While I sit in this seat as mayor, I will tell you that every single morning on the way to work, I still turn on banning. And then I get up there and I take the detour, right? About halfway up that hill, I go, oh. But nonetheless, for some reason, I cannot remember that we're working on a road I wanted to work on. So I get that it's annoying, but we're taking it too far at this point.
Does that ordinance address speeding through a work zone, or is it just?
It does.
Road? So, because I know from the emergency side of it, we're out, people driving by really fast. It's kind of heart wrenching because you can step out at any minute and they're going slow, you can make the eye contact.
Yeah.
Blow through there at 40 mile an hour normal speeds.
Right.
They just need to slow down. Make sure that covers those guys. If they got one lane closed, somebody's not going by.
Right. The item in here is exceeding the posted speed limit by 10 miles per hour or more.
What kind of fines are there? I don't guess I.
Those are set by the judge and prosecuting attorney.
And I think Paul said because of Senate Bill 5, I think it was no more than up to $250 fine is what the email said. Does that sound right?
Yeah, the city doesn't actually set the fine. The legal system has to do that. Any other questions or concerns? All right, if not, I will read this bill. Bill number 2021-28, an ordinance amending Chapter 310, Enforcement and Obedience to Traffic Regulations of the City of Marshfield Code by the addition of a new section regarding the offense of endangering a city work crew.
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call.
Quinn,
Aye.
Boggs,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Cunningham.
Aye.
Second reading, bill number 2021-28, an ordinance amending Chapter 310, Enforcement and Obedience to Traffic Regulations of the City of Marshfield Code by the addition of a new section regarding the offense of endangering city work crew.
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call.
Quinn.
Aye.
Boggs.
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Cunningham.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I would like to ask that city staff or somebody get that information to me.
I have an interview with Shelby tomorrow morning. Class.
Maybe that'll go with that.
Hope so.
If you can't stop them, what we're gonna do? You guys can't sit there well. Watch.
And there's only one way, and I talked to Paul, there's only one way that we can legally enforce this. Basically, the city worker will have to positively be able to identify the driver. The city worker will have to fill out a statement against the driver, also identifying the driver. And then we will summons the driver into court. The city worker will have to testify against them into court. That's the only way that we can enforce this. The tricky one was the 10 mile an hour over speed limit. That will have to be
You guys.
enforced by radar only.
But at least it gives us an avenue that, I mean, even if they catch them in a construction zone, right? I mean, that at least now we have an avenue to do something about it. Never, like I said, you're not going to fix stupidity, but at least it gives us an avenue to to at least try, right? At least to do something.
Oh, that's considered one of I consider the interstate or roads, the most dangerous part of my firefighter service is being on the road, because like you said, you can't fix stupid and they're everywhere. And their phones are more important than what's going on, because you don't know how many people drive by a scene like this. You know, you see it standing out there directing traffic, their phones up, they're filming everything as they drive by. They're not paying attention where they're going. And that's at 60 mile an hour as they drive by on the interstate.
No, thank you. All right, with that, that brings us to future agenda items. I did not make it here early enough to make the update list from the last meeting, so I do apologize. There are some items that we will be bringing back. That includes the capacity study. I believe that's on the next agenda. We will bring back City Hall discussion before an update on where we're at for both this space and the possible expansion and redesign. So we'll bring both of those items back. It sounds like we will have a special meeting called within the next week to delve into the paving projects a little deeper and hopefully get a contract on those paving projects. Is there anything else
On that note, is there a night next week that is off limits? It should not be very long. It really should not. I mean, there will be a contract and maybe some discussion about what we're putting in or not.
I will be out of state Thursday night.
Good to know.
I'm not available on Tuesday.
Good to know. So I know it can't happen Monday. I know it can't happen Monday. So would we be okay with a Wednesday night meeting if it was short?
I'm fine.
I can pull that off.
So hopefully we will have it by Wednesday
We
night.
need to get alive.
I need to get alive.
I'll try to keep it as short and sweet as I can. Obviously, it's a big decision, a lot of stuff that goes into it, big dollar amount. And so, but we still have quite a bit of legwork to do on it. So hopefully we'll be ready by Wednesday.
Are there any future agenda items that the board would like to suggest? Okay. Hearing none, we are going to enter closed session pursuant to section 610.021, subsection 2 of the revised statutes of the state of Missouri pertaining to leasing, purchase, or sale of real estate. Do I have a motion to enter closed session?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Quinn.
Aye.
Boggs.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Cunningham.
Aye.